Hello again. This is Patty with Patty Talks Too Much, and today I'm going to talk about parasites. I never realized that parasites are as controversial as they actually are. I'll give you an example. When I decided to do the rheumatoid arthritis protocol to reverse my condition, I talked to my doctor and I said, listen, this is what I plan on doing. I'm going to follow this protocol to address my rheumatoid arthritis naturally. And she said, well, what are you going to do? And I said, well, there's a series of cleanses that I'm going to do. I know that there are some supplements, but I'm going to start with a parasite cleanse. And she cut me off. Like I wasn't even able to finish what I was saying. And she said, whoa, that's an internet fad. She was actually really upset with me, like visibly upset with me. She said, where did you get that? That's an internet fad. And I said, well, no, I got it from a book that I read from a naturopath who reversed her rheumatoid arthritis by doing a series of cleanses and detoxes and supplements and adjusting her nutritional intake. And she said, oh, she wouldn't let it go. It was a fad. So she was really basically upset with me. I decided to ignore her, of course, and went about my business following the protocol that I had decided to follow to reverse my condition. So, why are parasite cleanses so darn controversial? Well, we don't really have to, think that far back or remember that far back when we may recall during the COVID days, the controversy with Joe Rogan, right? Who decided that he was going to address his COVID case when he came down with COVID with ivermectin and a few other things. But do you remember how controversial ivermectin was? I didn't understand. It's like, why is this harmless little drug so controversial? So it was a anti-parasite cleanse. It was an anti-parasite drug. And it was a Nobel Prize winner. It was like all of these things, but suddenly it was horse paste, it was this, it was that. It was so demonized in the media and everything. What the heck was going on? And of course, I smelled a rat. There was something wrong with this picture. And it really, I don't have to go into all the details. You probably know what happened and what the result of all of that was. But it really was about ivermectin being surprisingly effective in dealing with COVID. How was that even possible? Because wasn't COVID a virus? Well, it turns out that maybe it was more parasite related than we thought. And it turns out that there are a lot of things that are more parasite related than we thought. Now, why the medical establishment is so darn upset about any of us talking about parasites or doing something about parasites, well, that's a whole other thing that I think we'll uncover as the months and the years go by. We'll get to the truth of that matter. But it is interesting that doing a parasite cleanse would just raise the fervor of my doctor. And if you've ever mentioned doing a parasite cleanse to your doctor, you might have gotten a similar response. So parasites turn out to be a bigger issue in the West than they'd like us to believe. Now, we've all heard about it, the horrible stories about because of the unclean water in many parts of Africa, there are some really scary parasites that exist there. And there are places where parasites, and particularly nasty parasites, exist because of unclean conditions. But the assumption is we live in the West, we don't have parasites. And that just isn't true. Now, we might have different parasites than the ones they have in South Sudan, but parasites still exist. We still get them. They can be waterborne, they can be foodborne. There are all kinds of ways that we can contract parasites. And then once we have them, they make a home often in our gut. But parasites don't just live in the gut. They can live in all different parts of our body, embed in our muscles, get into our brains. So parasites are, in my opinion, a bigger problem than we have been taught or we have been led to believe. So if you're going to address parasites, you probably won't get a lot of support to do it from your doctor unless you have a naturopath or a functional doctor. That's just the unfortunately, our medical system is very much controlled by the pharmaceutical industry at this point. Hopefully, that will be changing soon in the not too distant future. But until then, you're going to have a fair amount of pushback for doing parasite cleanses and detoxes. So there are many different ways of doing a parasite cleanse. There are people who do ivermectin or fenbendazole or hydro what is it? Hydroxychloroquine. And then there are others that are just medications to address parasites. You can go that way. That wasn't the way that I went. I went with the herbal remedies, and there are two that I'm going to share with you today. And just before I do that, the reason why I started with a parasite cleanse, and it was recommended that I start with a parasite cleanse, is because much of the imbalances in our body come from gut health. Gut health, that's a whole other video, or several videos on gut health, because I've learned a lot about that. So if we have a gut that is out of balance, then that leads to, like, for me, I had leaky gut, I had a gut that was out of balance, and that contributed to, and perhaps even led to, my autoimmune condition of rheumatoid arthritis. So many of the things that ail us are connected to our gut health, and more that's being discussed. You've got to get your gut health. People are talking probiotics, this and that, correcting your gut, all of that. Which is great, because most of us, our guts are way out of whack, and it's causing a whole lot of issues throughout our bodies. So, and I'll talk in another video about how I've brought my gut health back more into balance. But why start with a parasite cleanse? Because if you have parasites, you can be, taking those probiotics, you can be taking those supplements, you can be making changes in your diet and eating more nutritionally dense foods. That's all really great. But if you have parasites and also heavy metals, which I'll talk about another time, but if you have parasites, they're constantly running interference on all of your good efforts. So you could think, I'm doing all of the right things. Why aren't I making headway here? And it could literally be that what you really needed to do was clear out the parasites and, do other detoxes, do detoxes for your liver, for your, for your kidneys, for your colon, all of those kinds of things. But if you have parasites, which chances are you do, they are running interference on all of your best efforts to eat more nutritionally, take supplements. All of those efforts, which are great, are not going to get the kind of results you want if you have parasites. So I began with parasites, and the thing about doing a parasite cleanse is it's not a one and done. The way that it works is you've got parasites that are adults, and they're laying their little eggies. And a lot of times those eggs will sit dormant And when the adult dies, they release a hormone and those eggs hatch. So you go in, you do a parasite cleanse, and then you have to come back through and maybe do a series of them, or do like a maintenance dose afterwards to get rid of the baby squigglers. All right, I know it's gross, but what can I tell you? They're parasites. So I've alternated between two different kinds of herbal parasite cleanses. If you feel more comfortable doing, medications like pharmaceuticals, there are pharmaceuticals that are available for parasite cleanses. I went with the herbals. So one of them is Paradex. Now, Paradex is available through Progressive Labs. So you have to go onto the Progressive Labs website and get a bottle of this. Now, this bottle, which has 90 capsules in it, is good for about 3 rounds of parasite cleanses. So it's well worth it. Now, the bottle will say take one a day. No, you got to bump it up some if you want to get rid of your parasites. So can shoot for 8 a day. And what you do is you take 2 in the morning on an empty stomach, take 2 between breakfast and lunch, 2 between lunch and dinner, and then 2 before you go to bed. Generally, you're not going to feel terrible or whatever, but if you get a die off the second or the third day, you do this for 5 or 6 days. All right. You do this for 5 or 6 days, and then you're done. All right. So it's kind of a shorter cleanse. If you find that the second or third day you're feeling flu-like symptoms, right? You're getting headachy, you're feeling that is you're just having a big die off and your liver's overwhelmed and you need to give it a little help. Now, make sure that when you're doing this or any of your other cleanses that you're drinking lots of water. You gotta be flushing while you're detoxing. Otherwise, it gets sluggish in there and you might feel sick if you've got a big die off. If you have a big die off and you're feeling like flu-like symptoms, another thing that you can do to really support your liver, because your liver's the one that's filtering and flushing. So is to do a series of coffee enemas. Now, people, there are a lot of people like, oh, I don't ever want to do a coffee enema. It is something that if you are literally feeling nauseous and have a headache, you do a coffee enema, you will find that you will get relief right away. So what does a coffee enema do? It draws the toxins out of the liver into the colon and flushes them out. There are coffee enemas that you can buy online, and you can get your little kit or whatever, and you basically use about 32, you brew 32 ounces, and so you can do it, you do like a set of 2. So you do half of it and you sit for 10 minutes, you hold it for 10 minutes and then release, and then do another one and hold it for 10 minutes and then release. You will find that that gives you great release. And I would recommend coffee enemas for any of the, while doing any of the detoxes that you do. Because if let's say you've never done a detox and you're doing a detox for the first time, you're going to have a lot of die-off, parasites, bacteria, other toxins, and it can really overload our livers. And our livers are already overloaded with the toxic soup that we live in. So giving your liver some extra support while you're going through a detox, your body will thank you. Your liver certainly will thank you. All right, so that's one. Now, the other one that is probably more well known is Dr. Clark's. All right, so you order this, it's about $60. And what you get 3 things. So you get green black walnut. This is a tincture, comes in a bottle with a dropper. You also get wormwood capsules and clove capsules, and you get a sheet with directions. This cleanse takes 18 days, and there are certain certain amounts of each of these that you take each day, and you just follow it through for 18 days. After you finish, it will be recommended on the sheet that between 5 and 10 days after, you do a maintenance dose. Now, this is what I'm talking about, a coming back in and, killing off maybe some of those babies that just hatched, because mommy's dead. Sorry, that was morbid, but that's what I mean when I say doing a parasite cleanse isn't really a one and done situation, because you've got the adults and then you have the unhatched eggs. So you've got to kind of work your way through. I do a full parasite cleanse every third month, and then like maintenance in between. But I'm also dealing with reversing rheumatoid arthritis, which is a systemic issue that I'm in the process of reversing. So I'm hitting it hard. Yeah, okay. So but in the meantime, yeah, even as I'm doing this, we are still exposed to parasites and all kinds of things in our environment. So we are up against a lot of what it means to live in a toxic soup. So it is generally an ongoing thing. Once you're kind of stable, you think you've gotten rid of your parasites, you're feeling pretty good. Generally, people recommend a parasite cleanse in the fall and in the spring. Maybe you could do it a couple times a year. Anyway, but minimum a couple times a year. I'm doing it more frequently because I'm dealing with an autoimmune condition in my body. So those are the two parasite cleanses that I've been working with a fair amount of success. But again, you can approach it in different ways. There are medications that you can use, or you can go the herbal route that I've gone. The thing is that it is important to address parasites in our system if we are reversing a condition, or we're feeling like we are not on the top of our game. Most of us aren't. Most of us have just normalized the way that we feel, but we can feel so much better. We can be functioning at a much higher level than we are if we can just clean out our bodies. So one of the major things to do, and I think one of the first things to do, is address parasites. And then we can really get into rebalancing our gut, taking those supplements, making those changes in our nutritional program. But we've got to get the interlopers out of the way. We've got to get the little critters that are stealing our joy. Don't let them steal your joy. Anyway, that's all I have for you today. I hope that whatever it is you do, find a way to do a cleanse. It's spring. It's spring cleaning. Do a cleanse. Clean the closet and get rid of the parasites in your gut. Yeah. Anyway, this is Patty with Patty Talks Too Much. Have a great day. I'll chat with you soon. Ciao. Hey friends, I'm not giving you medical advice. This is just what I do.